looking for the red light. Looking for the red light here. You know, sometimes my guests actually get the you're live before I do. So if you already see it's live, let me know.
I see it live on my side, Brent. Hopefully.
Okay, well, here it is. It must be live. It must be live, although I apparently am not, but we are live. And yeah, this is like the nightcap, because I did a show earlier today with Hayden Stafford of Pega. But this one is also going to be good because I'm going to be speaking to Tyler Lessard, who is the VP of Marketing, and I love this part, the Chief Video Strategist for Vidyard. Tyler, it's great to talk to you again. It's been a while.
Thanks so much, Brent. It's great to be here. It has been a little while, but appreciate you following what we're doing here in the world of sales and marketing and video. It's an interesting time.
I mean, how could you not follow what's going on with sales and marketing and video? Because like everybody is either watching it or streaming it or doing something with it at this point.
Well, here we are now. I mean, it's very meta, of course. We're live. We're going straight to video for our conversation. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's been an interesting number of years where video has kind of crossed that proverbial chasm from advertising and marketing into just how we create content, how we publish content, how even salespeople connect with their customers these days. So it's been a pretty wild expansion in terms of the use cases that we've seen. And, thankfully, a lot of the results have also come along with that as businesses have found new ways to adopt it. Yeah.
So speaking of results and kind of tracking all this video stuff, you guys just so happened to recently release your 2021 Video and Business Benchmark Report. And I guess, there's so much stuff in here. I'm just going to, pop this up. I know you also have a nice background to fit the occasion as well. But we want to dug in, and I want to pick and choose because there's no way in the world we could go through all this stuff today. Right. But I want to do a little picking and choosing. But before I do that, why don't you just tell us about the background of the benchmark report? How did you, the demographics behind it and all that stuff?
Yeah. So here at Vidyard, we're a suite of video technologies for marketing and sales teams. Our primary customer base tends to be companies in B2B markets. So it's those who are using video content to support their online marketing programs, their go-to-market programs, their sales efforts. Not so much using it for like advertising or paid media, but more so as a content medium to deliver their messages. And a number of years ago, we decided to anonymize the data in our platform. So all of our first party data, looking at, at that time, which was hundreds of customers using Vidyard to host and manage their videos, and to slice and dice it in different ways to take a look at some of the year-over-year trends in how that use of video was evolving. So we started off looking at things like, on average, how many companies within our base of users, how many videos were they publishing on average, and looking at year-over-year trends, slicing it by industry, things like that. We looked at the average engagement in videos of different lengths across the platform. So all videos that were less than a minute or 2 to 5 minutes or 10 minutes and above, what was the average engagement time in those videos, given all the data we have available to us, and many other things. So it's something we've been looking at year over year based on our own primary data in our platform. And in the last years, we've added in a lot of information about the use of video in sales teams, and not only the uploading and sharing of produced videos, but also the use of one-to-one recorded videos or user-generated videos, as we might call them, people that are recording using Vidyard's tools and sending those videos out as one-offs. So it's been really interesting to see that dynamic as well. And here we are with a lot of great year-over-year data to see some of the trends from the last 2 years and even beyond that.
Well, so before I kind of picked a couple of graphics from the report, but are there any overarching key themes that you want to point out at the top of this before I kind of dig into where I want to go?
Yeah. Well, the really big thing from 2020, when we look at this sort of year over year on a calendar basis, and 2020, of course, we all know as that year when the pandemic happened and many other things that we don't need to talk about here. But it was the year where business went truly virtual, truly digital first, remote, and whatever way you want to put it. And so it was actually a really interesting time for this, shifting use of video. And in some cases, we expected that we might see less video creation because all of a sudden teams were distributed. We weren't necessarily in the office where we could shoot in a production studio. Even agencies were having trouble, producing a lot of content because of restrictions imposed by the pandemic. In fact, we saw quite the opposite. We saw a huge surge in the numbers of videos being created by businesses in 2020. Part of that was actually an increase in the number of produced videos, but anecdotally, we saw a lot more authentic shoot and share style content instead of heavily produced. But we also saw this huge surge in the use of video by sales teams for one-to-one video messaging to their clients. And so that, again, in hindsight, maybe isn't a big surprise because we all adopted Zoom for customer calls, and then things like one-to-one recorded videos for quick updates, custom demos, and things like that. But it was a huge surge. In 2020, it was more than double the number of videos created on average for companies in our on our platform compared to the year before. So that was the really big thing that we saw in 2020.
All right, I'm going to dig into some of these graphics because they're just some really great numbers. So you mentioned, the nicely produced versus the user generated. But it looks like across the industry, are these numbers, you said they're pretty significantly up year over year. Are you surprised at any of the numbers, particularly when you look at specific industries?
Yeah, what was really interesting in 2020 was this rise of industries where sales teams and go-to-market programs were traditionally field sales types of activities or more in-person engagement. So high tech, which you can see here on the screen, is the leading producer of videos on average. Within our base, high tech companies created and shared 583 videos in the year on average, and that's a combination of produced and user generated. But financial services and education, media and entertainment and professional services, those all saw a huge spike in 2020, particularly because of a growth in the use of user-generated videos. And we saw that as a reaction to this shift where sales teams in those organizations had to move to an inside sales model. But traditionally, they were very relationship-based. And so therefore, the need for using video to still clearly communicate ideas, to put themselves in front of their customers, was still very, very important. And so many of them shifted to this use of video pretty significantly in 2020.
Yeah, financial services, you would think, interesting that they grew so much because you think of like, financial insurances and that kind of stuff, kind of boring. But
yep.
You think the ability to leverage video makes it a little bit more appealing to their target audience to actually listen and take in what they're talking about?
Well, I think it's a particularly interesting industry when you think about the use of video, and it was the one of all of these where we saw the greatest shift in 2020 compared to previous years in their use of video. And I think what makes it interesting for me is when you think about financial services. Number one, it's a highly competitive market, and in some subspace, value comes to the brand relationship that they have with their clients, the personal one-to-one relationships that individual advisors or brokers have with their downstream clients. And there's also a lot of topics and ideas that are relatively complex for us humans out there, us lay people, who don't necessarily know all the nuances of how different terms affect things or how different interest rates work and so on. And so I think you bring those three things together and you think about the importance of brand, the importance of personal relationships, and then the importance of explaining complex ideas clearly. And that's like a perfect storm for the use of video in today's world, where before they relied much more on in-person engagement for that. You'd walk into the branch, you'd feel the brand, you'd meet your advisor face-to-face, they would explain things to you. Now that that's becoming more and more virtual, right? Video now becomes that kind of next best thing to being there in person. And so we had always seen this sort of climbing of the use of video, but 2020 was absolutely a huge accelerant to start to fill that gap. And more of those clients that I speak with are saying this was in many ways a very positive thing for our business model going forward because it forced us to start to embrace these sort of digital first mentalities. And we're now set up to be able to do this in the future and scale how we engage clients whether they prefer to be in person or whether they prefer to be engaged online. And I think that's the really important thing, that foundation is now built.
All right, this next one is really interesting to me. Let me bring this up. The total number of videos is really, really interesting, but the breakdown between user generated and like produced, when you go from small to large, is really really interesting.
Yeah, what you see here, to interpret this chart, you see the different sizes of companies along the x-axis, and you go from smaller to larger companies, and then the green part of the bar chart represents the number of produced videos, and we define that as any video that's uploaded into the Vidyard platform and therefore has somehow been recorded and edited and then uploaded into the system. Traditional videos that you think about online. The blue bars represent the number of user-generated videos on average by individuals in those companies. And we measure that by those using Vidyard-specific tools to record and send a custom video, because we have tools to do that. And those tools you can use to record your webcam, record a screen share, and then send or share that video. So those are user-generated, which are largely done by people in sales, some in marketing, but they're individual people recording and sending a video without any professional production behind it. And what you see here is certainly some interesting trends that are starting to emerge. In smaller companies, the majority of the videos they're creating are actually user-generated. They're ones where individual sales reps, sales engineers, marketers, account managers are recording a quick video and sending it off to a client. And that could be a quick demo or a walkthrough, could be an answer to a question. They're largely videos that are meant for more or less one-time use. And as you move up into the larger companies, you see a more even split and them doing more produced video content. And I think there's some reasons why we're starting to see this. I think for smaller companies, there's a lot more freedom in terms of individuals being able to create their own content and share it. And we're seeing a lot of those smaller companies actually take advantage of that. It's kind of almost a competitive advantage for a lot of smaller ones where their sales reps can go, yeah, if I want to record and send somebody a video, I can do that without worrying about the brand police coming after me or having to get legal approval, just like I can type and send an email or make a phone call, right? Whereas in larger companies, there isn't always that same level of enablement or empowerment. But it's starting to catch up. We definitely saw throughout the year that larger companies were starting to open these things up. And that's where you saw still almost half of the videos being shared by those organizations are one being recorded and sent by their individual employees.
And I guess there's a reason that the smaller companies rely more heavily on these user-generated, from a cost and a production standpoint as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about the large companies, 5,000 plus, 738 produced videos in a given year, for smaller companies like the one I'm a part of, that would be an astronomical budget, be a huge part of my marketing budget if I were to, pay for all of those to be produced. So we do see a significant amount of production happening in those larger companies. What you're also finding, I think, is a related trend in those bigger companies is it's actually across the board of more and more in-house video production as well. So it's not only are you paying for outsource, but they also have more resources internally to produce professional grade videos because they have those people on staff as well. Yeah,
and it just popped this up because it gives you a nice breakdown as to kind of where the resources are coming from to create these things. And I guess it is nice to have a little bit more of a budget. It gives you a little bit more opportunity to do some things, but user generated, is that as effective as if you were doing some high budget kind of production?
Well, what it really speaks to is this almost like diversification of the kinds of videos being used now within the marketplace. So would I have somebody just record a video themselves that I'm going to post up on my homepage? Of course not, right? That's not the place for that kind of a video. And so I think what's happened is you've still seen, even the number of produced videos was still up year over year. And so companies are still producing more and more content using professional producers for everything from videos on my website, explainer videos, educational videos going out on digital channels, YouTube channels, videos for promotional campaigns, things like that, right through to demos and customer stories. there's an interesting breakdown in the report of the different kinds of videos companies are actually producing with likely some budget behind it. So that's still happening. What's also going on, and there you see lots of different examples. Yeah. And then what's happening in parallel to that, though, is this rise of these user-generated videos that are complementary, that have very different use cases. They're not the one-to-many videos that we're publishing on our website. They're largely the one-to-one videos where, again, somebody wants to walk somebody through a custom, demonstration of something, or walk through a few slides, or send a quick check-in to see how they're doing. People are starting to record and send short videos as a way of doing that. So it's kind of emerging as just a conversational or communication medium, in addition to being this more promotional and marketing medium. So I think that's what we're seeing out there.
Nice. And this slide puts up a number of different video types. Product demos, is that pretty much on par for previous years, that they're kind of the most produced kind of demo, the kind of videos, I guess,
videos,
product focused?
Yeah, what we've seen, and what this is showing you here is we've complemented our primary research with survey-based data into the audience to understand how they look at the kinds of videos they've been producing and so on. And you can see here how to interpret this is 63% of respondents indicated that they've been producing product demos, 51% that they're producing how-tos, and so on. And what we have seen absolutely in the last few years has been the dominant form of video being used in B2B companies, which is what this audience largely is, are these educational videos. So it'll be surprising for a lot of people to see this and go, well, I'm surprised like ads aren't number one, or YouTube pre-roll, or social media videos. Because in the world of B2B, video has emerged as this great educational content medium, right? We all have complicated products or services that people need to better understand. So product demos, how-tos, explainers, those have been for the last few years some of the top spots for the types of videos. But in 2020, we saw the biggest growth came from live streams, which you have highlighted there, one-to-one video, which is back to those user-generated videos. And we also saw a rise in the use of social video. And again, I think this is because this audience is largely B2B companies who are now starting to get into this trend of saying, yep, what those consumer brands have always known, we've got to get on board with using video on social as well. So those are some of the growth areas that we saw in 2020.
So I definitely highlighted live streams because a lot of people are doing them, like we're doing this right here.
Yeah.
But the thought leadership one, that kind of was interesting to me. And another one that is really interesting that I didn't highlight is culture videos. Could you explain how that is that on the rise? Maybe not as fast as some of the other ones, but culture videos, particularly from a B2B company, that seems like that's something I didn't recall seeing much of that before.
Yeah, it is another interesting one, and the way that we typically define culture videos, I can't remember the exact wording in the survey, but it relates to videos that are created by an organization, for the purpose of connecting with their client base through sort of personal moments of culture or sharing and so on. And what we have seen here is, I think particularly over the last couple of years, where more and more we're feeling a little bit distant from our customers, that culture videos are things that are just like celebrating milestones in the company. They may be, again, putting out videos to, share some fun during a holiday moment, right? I think just about every company that I subscribe to sent me a happy holiday video this year, it feels like. And those are sort of moments of connection with their audiences now, where I think, again, in the B2B space, a lot of marketers are kind of getting over to that side of saying, you know what, we got to have a little bit of personality. We got to have a little bit more humanity with our audience, a little bit more fun, and make them smile, take off the tie, undo a button here, and be just a little bit more human and fun with our audience. Sharing those on social media, sharing them directly through, email and other comms. So we are starting to see that happen more and more. And it's actually exciting to me, because I think it's nice to see a lot more companies trying to humanize their brand in today's world and connect with people on a more authentic, personal level. I think it's really important right now.
Do you think that came about because of everybody being locked down in the pandemic, and you did feel this need to to try to connect on a more human level because we aren't able to do that the way we traditionally do it?
I think, like many things, it did get accelerated in the last year. We certainly were seeing it happening in pockets in previous years, and I think in general, in different areas of business to business, we've seen over the last 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. I think every year we continue to see more and more evidence that there's this push towards more authentic, genuine, trustworthy human marketing. Whether it be video or otherwise. Most of the marketing conferences you'll attend, a lot of the hot topics really revolve around that because independent of the pandemic, business has been going more and more virtual and digital every year, right? And buyers more and more are expecting more of the buying journey to happen self-service on demand, right? I think, we all know the stats from Forrester and Serious Decisions that over 80% of the buying journey happen self-service online before they ever reach out to a company. In some cases, that might be closer to 95%, who knows? But the reality there is we know as businesses that our prospects are spending more time themselves online, learning about our businesses, self-teaching about different topics, talking to peers, looking at review sites, right? All those things are a bigger part of the buying journey now. And so the mind shift that's starting to happen for marketers out there is, oh, wow, we need to replace what used to happen with one-to-one conversations in the sales process there, right? Like there used to be this part of the buying journey early on where the salesperson got to talk to somebody and they talk about the weather, they talk about the local sports team, they build rapport. And now that's being replaced with, nope, I'm not talking to sales until I'm pretty sure you're one of my top 3 vendors. So now marketers are figuring out, well, we still have to build those relationships. We still have to create a more emotional connection to our brand. We have to be transparent and show them who our people are. And that's where things like culture videos, on-demand thought leadership, live streams, right? All of these become this transparent view into companies that people can view offline self-service. And so I think that's a big part of it, is that expectation of today's buyers.
And then on top of that, the next slide that caught my attention is this distribution of channels where video control sales and customer conversations. So it's almost segues into what you were just talking about.
Yeah, what you see here is how companies are primarily distributing their different types of video, and this was actually an area, the one you have highlighted there was again a big gainer in the last year, where we've always seen companies pushing out their videos on social media channels, their YouTube channels, publishing on their website. But this was the last couple of years we've seen this building up where these videos are being used for the sales team, for them to leverage in their customers, in their conversations with customers. And it might be videos that are being produced by marketing, right? Remember, the product demos were actually the most commonly created from across a lot of these companies. Many of those product demos are intended to be used by the sales team so they can send them offline to their clients and they can watch them on their own time. So a lot of that content is now being created with the express purpose that sales can use it. But there's also, remember, more and more sales teams that are being empowered to create their own content, create their own one-to-one videos, create their own screen shares that they can send over to clients. So this is an area I expect to continue to grow as we think more and more about how to empower sales teams with great content or even enable them to do it themselves.
So how much input when the videos are created, let's say in-house, pseudo professionally, by marketing, because I'm assuming a lot of marketing has a big role in that. But how much does the actual salesperson have in these kind of more professionally produced videos that are aimed at drumming up business?
Yeah. So I think what we tend to see is they play a very important role as an input into the priorities of what marketing and maybe their sales engineering team is creating. Great comment from John on customer story videos, which are also a big part of that, of creating those customer videos that are, again, intended to be used by the sales team during the sales process. And so I think what we're seeing is a lot of sellers are becoming key input into what do I really need to be successful in my role? What kinds of videos could we create as a business that would make me more efficient in my job? That's actually one of the big areas that we see an opportunity for video in sales. Because sales reps and sales engineers can often pinpoint the same demo they do over and over again, right? For every customer, yep, we're going to go through the same demo. I've got to get the sales engineer on the call. They've got to spend another 45 minutes of their time that frankly, they could be off doing something better if there was just a pre-produced video that showed exactly what it is we were going to walk through. And so that's starting to happen en masse now, where they're saying, hey, let's record these demos, whether they're professionally produced or something the sales engineering team does with a screen share and hits record. Let's have a library of these ready to go. So when a customer needs to learn about something, the sales rep can say, yeah, great, here you go. Here's a great video to walk you through that. And I'd pay really particular attention at the 7-minute mark where we talk about X, Y, and Z. Instead of, hey, let's book 45 minutes, I'll get 3 people from my team on the call, and we end up booking it 3 weeks out. So that's the kind of dynamic we're starting to see more and more. And I think businesses need to be mindful of that, of saying, how can content like this help make my team more efficient, make them more productive, but also just give our customers better options for how they engage in this content.
The thing that caught my attention on this one is just how prevalent and relevant social media is across the board in all 3 of the CRM related areas.
Yeah.
Number 1 on sales and customer support, number 2 on marketing. But the other customer conversations and sales prospecting conversations, do you think that's a trend? Are you seeing because, we're making these videos and leveraging them to really engage and not just promote, but really try to engage? Do you see these conversational aspects of video moving up and even maybe approaching, I don't even see it in the marketing here, but I don't even know how it would penetrate the marketing for a conversation, unless the conversation is transitioned over to sales immediately. But it seems like video is being viewed as a way to interact, not just to show and promote.
Yeah. Well, it's moving, in the world of marketing, it's largely a one-to-many sort of scale initiative, right? It's we're producing certain videos that are meant for a large audience, and they're going to go on our website, our YouTube channel, and our broad social media channels. But in the worlds of sales and customer service, it tends to be much more of a one-to-few, or in some cases, a one-to-one mechanism, where, again, I need to answer a question a customer has asked. I could either type out an email, or I could hit record, look into the camera, share something on my screen, explain it, and send that video on over, right? So it just becomes a way to effectively continue the conversation without always relying on having to type something out, because often it can actually be easier and also more impactful to record a quick video. And then social media is interesting when you think about the use in sales and customer experience. We're seeing more and more sales teams and sales reps building up their personal brands on their social media profiles. They're posting content themselves. They're also posting short videos where they're talking about certain topics, where they're, again, maybe having short conversations with somebody in their ecosystem and sharing that with their community. And that's working very, very well. As we all know, the social platforms, just seem to want to gobble up video as a medium. They heavily promote live streams, on-demand content. They're really pushing those into the space. So sales teams and even customer experience teams are sharing more and more of that on their channels to engage their audiences. So it's a whole new world. It's really interesting to see these shifting dynamics for across the board for marketing, sales, and service.
So this next one is really one that I focus a lot on, and it's all around how long should these videos be? And now this is kind of the first part of this. This is you're just reporting the video length, the percentages, and all that. Talk a little bit about this, and then the back end of this is how impactful does the time element have to be to help hit the mark with these videos?
Yeah, well, it's a question we always get. How long should videos be, right? We'll be asking it for generations to come, Brent, because there is no silver bullet answer to that. The answer is always, well, it depends. It depends on a lot of factors. What is the video intended for? What channel is it going out on? All those kinds of questions. But what you see here is of all the videos shared through our platform, which was 750,000 plus videos over the course of the year, this gives you a sense for the average lengths of all those different videos. And this includes both user-generated videos as well as produced and published content. And so what you see here is about 37% were 0 to 60 seconds, so less than a minute. And another 23% were in that 1 to 2 minute mark. So roughly 60% of the videos were less than 2 minutes, which is a pretty high number. But the previous year, it was well over, it was about almost 75%, I think, were 2 minutes or under.
Wow.
So this year, the percentage has shifted a little bit, where we're still seeing a lot of short form content. Most videos are less than 2 minutes. However, there is still absolutely a play where you can see here a significant percentage are greater than 2 minutes. And when you move into the top block, which is 20 minutes or more, about 10% of the videos shared were more than 20 minutes. But again, this changed year over year, where in the previous year, only 6% of videos were more than 20 minutes and about 75% were less than 2 minutes. So the net of that, what we've seen happening is, while there's more and more short form videos being used, on the flip side, we've also seen this resurgence of longer form videos, which is largely things like webinars and on-demand recordings of webinars and live streams, right? So as the use of webinars and live streams went way up in the year, so too did the amount of on-demand versions of that content. So all of a sudden, we started seeing all of these 30, 40 hour-long videos being shared in different ways, which are coming from those and now being available on demand. So lots of different dynamics at play here for what we're seeing in the types of videos being used.
And I know I'll take this 30, 40-minute live stream, and I'll find the little snippets and clips and pieces that are usually right in there under 2 minutes. And so it's a way to actually extend the longer conversation and hopefully get people interested enough, in that little 2-minute clip to say, I want to learn more. I want to hear the whole thing, and actually feed more people to actually check out the longer form thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's points here, of course. The longer the content, well, the better it needs to be to keep people's attention. But you're also not expecting, to keep everyone's attention for the whole thing, right? Like, let's be honest, we'll put out longer form videos for different purposes, and we're not expecting hundreds of thousands of people to watch that all the way to the end. We're expecting the 50 to 60 people that really care about that topic to dive in and binge on it and look at it in different ways. So there's all those dynamics of, some content is really meant to try to get lots of viewership. Other is meant to go deep into a topic and really be relevant to a specific sub-audience. And there isn't one answer when, both become a part of your marketing and sales plays. So
I'm guessing this next slide will show us why such a large percentage of these videos are 2 minutes or less. Right. You want to explain this one?
Well, we all know the longer the video is, the less likely people are going to stay tuned all the way to the end. And this shows here for videos of different length. So under 60 seconds, 1 to 2 minutes, and all the way up to 20 minutes and more. The average viewership, the number of people who click play, what percentage of them stay tuned throughout the duration to the end of the video. And again, this is on average for all of the videos processed through our platform or uploaded in 2020. Which was nearly 1 million different videos. And what you can see here, not surprisingly, the shorter it is, the more likely people are going to watch to the end. This year, on average, it was, of all the videos published that were less than 60 seconds, about 58% of people watched that video all the way to the end, compared to ones that were longer than 20 minutes, only 24% of people stay tuned all the way to the end. Now, some of these numbers may even look demoralizing for some of you. Go, wait a minute, I put all that effort into these videos, and even if they're short, only 50% of people are watching all the way to the end. But it's always been these kinds of numbers where we don't expect that, everybody is always going to click play and stay tuned. But these give you some benchmarks for what the averages look like in the market. Of course, best in class is quite a bit higher. Best in class videos under 2 minutes tend to see about 75 to 80% completion rate for people who watch. Average, again, tends to be more in that 60% range.
I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, and you want to keep people's attention for as long as you can. And I can see, I've got this show is called A Few Good Minutes and it's literally because I remember, taking these 40-minute conversations and then, just on a whim, it's like, I'm going to call out this 2 minutes, because this is a really good 2 minutes block. And then I would, in certain instances, the total viewing minutes for the 2 minute clip would far surpass the total viewing minutes for the 40 minutes.
Right.
And that was like an eye-opening thing. I was like, wow. But I think it even drove people to watch the 40-minute long form more than they would have without the 2-minute clip.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing here, when you think about the kinds of videos you're creating, where you're sharing them, there's a difference between the content that is really expected to be more passive engagement as opposed to really active engagement. And any form of content really follows this, right? If somebody is finding your content on their social media feed, it's generally going to be more passive engagement because they didn't come there looking for you, right? They're not on your social feed searching for something about you, right? It's something that's coming into their feed. It's similar things to your email marketing, right? All of those, cold outreach from a sales rep, those are all areas where you have to expect more passive engagement in your content. You're effectively interrupting their day. They're not blocking off a time to learn about something, and shorter content is always going to perform better in that context. But on the flip side, when people really want to learn, right? When you want to do deep learning on something, everybody says, oh, our attention spans are short. No, our attention spans are fine. I mean, I can watch 8 straight hours of Game of Thrones with no problem because I'm limited in the content, right? What's changed is the ways in which we consume content, and also our expectations of what we're consuming, and our tolerance for bad content is zero. So, but if I'm actively looking for something, right? Like if I really want to dive deep into the state of video, I'll tune into this whole live stream, right? Like I'll spend the time to listen to this because it's a topic I want to go deep on. And so that again is where your content destinations are where you can have deeper content because people are coming to learn, and that's great. On the flip side, videos and other content you're doing for social, for cold leads, for email promos, keep it short because you're interrupting somebody's day and they're not going to tune in for more than 2 minutes.
I wanted to bring up this. I think this is the last one I had here. The effectiveness. How should companies actually look at how successful these videos are for them? Because I think you kind of touched on it a little earlier. Some people are like, oh my God, only a small percentage of people seem to be watching from beginning to end. And we were trying to get everybody to watch this thing to beginning to end, and they freak out because their expectations are way out of whack. Right. So how should they be looking at the analytics that they get back from when they put out videos, and how should they feel about the stats as opposed to the kind of ridiculous freak out people have when they think they're supposed to be getting this and they're only getting that?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of myths and misnomers about how you think about measuring the performance of your video assets. And like anything, it comes back to, what were the goals in creating the content in the first place? And are you set up to be able to measure that, to understand how well it's contributing to that desired outcome? And then whether or not it's something you can use further in that realm and learn from and create more of. And the purposes for creating video have really diversified. So for some video content, we're creating it largely intentionally for reach. So there is some content that is meant for awareness building that we want lots of sharing, tends to be things that are shorter, more promotional in nature. And in those cases, we do want to measure reach and understand how many views is this video getting, right? But that is also largely a factor of how well you promote it. It's not necessarily a factor of how good the video is. It's how well did you promote it? How well did you get it in front of the people that might care about it to get those clicks in the first place? So reach and number of views is certainly a metric, but not the only one, because it doesn't tell the whole story and it doesn't necessarily sort of live unto itself. The second thing is that I have to think about is resonance. So I've got the 3 R's here. You'll hear Brent. Reach. The second is resonance, which is the engagement time in that content. So for those who did click play, how long did they stay tuned? And how does that compare to other content you're creating? If it has high resonance, i.e. people are staying tuned all the way to the end at a high rate, then the content itself is really good, right? It really hit the mark. People who are clicking play are staying tuned. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you get videos where, 10 seconds in, 80% of people drop off. Not resonating, folks, right? Something's off with that content. You could have gotten 100,000 views on it because you spent a ton of money to promote it, but if people aren't staying tuned, it didn't resonate. So that's the second thing I look for is there's reach, there's resonance. And then the last one, which is the hardest one, is actual ROI or return on that investment. Usually as marketers and sellers, we're using videos to try to generate more leads, or to convert more opportunities and close more deals. And so the ability to track that and know, hey, of people who watched this video, did they actually convert into a lead in our system? Did they actually become a sales opportunity? Did they actually end up getting closed and generate revenue for the business? And that's a much harder one to understand because most people aren't equipped to know who's actually watching which videos, right? They just know number of views and average duration, but they can't say that, yep, we closed GE on this big sale because they watched these 5 videos. They just don't know. But more advanced ones are doing that, right? And that's where selfishly platforms like Vidyard really come into play, where we've always focused on that and helping businesses track and know who's watching which videos, get that data back into their CRM so that they can then report afterwards and say, yep, we know that this video influenced $10 million in pipeline and $1 million in closed business. We know that these 3 videos contributed to that big deal that we closed with GE. Now you can start to learn the actual ROI on whether or not those videos were closing deals. So those are the 3 ways we look at it. Those who are using all those kinds of metrics, reach, resonance, and ROI, consistently report higher satisfaction and better performance of their video content. In a lot of cases, it's because they simply know the actual results as compared to others who don't. But what it also means is they know where to focus their time and energy. They know to say, great, these kinds of videos are actually having the biggest impact on sales. Let's do more of those. These ones over here, though they felt good, they were getting lots of views, we don't think they're actually contributing to pipeline. So let's shift our investment over here and focus on the content that matters.
I know from my personal view or use of analytics, from a industry analyst, industry observer, that kind of person who's really trying to get people to kind of listen to my take on what's going on in the industry or these conversations. Yep. I look at total viewing minutes. And for example, like I just mentioned, like I could have like a 40-minute long conversation and it could do, let's say like 1,000 minutes or something like that. Yep. That's not bad. But then I could find a minute clip piece. And this just happened. I literally just put one up 4 days ago. A minute and 8 seconds, like 68 seconds of content that had this, I thought was a really good piece of content. And I put it up on LinkedIn, and just that 68 seconds generated 600 minutes of viewing. And right. Now I think 1,500 views or something like that. So I know it's not just, it's not people viewed it for 5 seconds and that was it. Now I can tell that for a 68-second clip, there's a lot of people that viewed a good portion of that full clip because it generated 600 total viewing minutes versus the 68 seconds of the clip itself.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that sort of total viewing time is a proxy for that combination of reach and resonance, because now it's okay, it's getting in front of people and they're watching it. And so, you can start to learn those sorts of things. But as the marketer in me says, okay, so that's good because that's going to help you expand your audience. More and more people are going to see it. They're probably liking it or sharing it. So that's a great reach and awareness mechanism, those 1-minute videos, to help build your audience and create micro moments of engagement. However, I'd yearn to understand, okay, but people watching the 1-minute version versus those watching the full 40 minutes, which ones of those are actually likely to convert through my buying cycle? And, sometimes you'll find that, again, all those people watching the 1-minute video, that's still great, but they're not the people that are actually ending up subscribing or leaning in further. But the 3 people who watch the 40-minute version all the way to the end are the ones who go and subscribe afterwards, buy your next report, and dive in further because they're the ones who are actually leaning in. So that's the interesting dynamic of content right now, because both are important. You want to build your audience and engage them in micro moments, but you also want to give that longer form content to let those people who want to self-select to lean in, to learn, and then ultimately, hopefully, you'll see that those ones convert as well. So yeah, that's the fun of it.
I got a lot of comments from my buddy John Reed over at Diginomica. Let me see if these guys write paragraphs. They don't write like little one sentence or something. Let me read it. One thing that is interesting is that shorter videos can be more expensive to produce, sometimes a lot more expensive, but it can work well for like a condensed customer interview with highlights. that's a valuable sales tool and worth the production cost. That as you do more videos and you pay attention to the analytics, you do begin to see the patterns that are important for you to make, more connecting kind of videos going forward, because you're able to analyze what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And, John's absolutely right. And, again, Brent, you've sort of seen from your own looking at the data saying, these 1-minute clips are actually super valuable in terms of overall engagement time, versus these other things. And you learn that over time. But what's interesting, again, as you think about this production of short form videos, you're absolutely right. It can take more time and be more expensive to produce a really well thought out short video. That is the goal. There is to respect your audience's time. But that often, right, it's the same old adage as if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter, because it does take more time and effort to plan that story out and to think about, how to get just those tight points that you want in there, right? Doing a really amazing 1 to 2 minute explainer is actually very hard, right? To actually condense down your story and think through, what's the problem statement that I want to peel back? How can I create a storytelling narrative to stitch it together? What kinds of visuals can support this? But when you nail it, then you spend that $10,000 to get somebody to script it right, nail it. Then that 2-minute explainer is so much more impactful than the 10-minute long demo, because so many people are going to see it and they're going to go, I get it, right? But there was a lot of pre-production and planning that went into that, as well as post-production to make it happen. Same thing with customer stories. It is way harder to make an amazing 3-minute customer story than it is to make a 10-minute long customer story, right? Because it's harder to cut it down, but your audience will prefer that in many cases. And you'll know, the 10-minute version, they're tuning out after 3.5 minutes. The 3-minute version, people are watching and then converting because we're getting to the point sooner that they want to hear about.
Right. And you always feel like, oh my God, how do I cut this out? I mean, how do I not include this? And in that inclusion and after inclusion, you're back up to 10 minutes. So you have to really know know what your message is and know how to get to it quick and know how to tell it in a way that's compelling. Because you're right. I think that's the reason why these little 2-minute clips work from a 40-minute conversation, because there's the nugget. It's like you're mining for nuggets, and you're able to find a nice minute nugget out of a 50-minute conversation that will drive as much viewing as the 50-minute conversation.
Yeah. And it's interesting. A lot of this longer form content, you're right. You can do things that, become these evergreen sort of resources of fresh new content. Even those customer stories, you can do a lot more filming of a longer story with a customer digging into different areas, and you can start repurposing those for lots of different things, right? You can create your 3-minute produced customer story. You can take clips that you don't really do much polish on and you intentionally leave as feeling very authentic, as like a genuine testimonial that your sales team can use. Those can end up going into clips. Even some of our video ads that we do on LinkedIn are actual clips from actual customer stories that we've done, right? And they're those like micro, sort of highlights where that person's saying, da-da-da-da-da, this. And it's like, boom, that like 15 seconds there, that's our ad. Like it feels authentic, it feels natural. So you can start to repurpose a lot of these things as well. And it's actually one of the neat things when you take that mentality with video to capture more than you need, but then be mindful of how you can repurpose.
And this has been a really great conversation with Tyler Lessard from Vidyard. And Tyler, I know this report, I was able to get it for free. This report is free, right? People can download this from your site, right?
It sure is, Brent. We're givers. We're Canadian here at Vidyard, so we're givers. But yes, in all seriousness, we produce this on an annual basis to share with our community these benchmarks that we're seeing out there in the market. So you can go to vidyard.com/benchmarks, I believe. Search Google Vidyard benchmark report. You'll find it. It's also featured on our blog. So no excuse not to be able to find it. And it is free to download. And you can find lots of great data in there and resources. And it links out to lots of other helpful tools as well. So yeah, go check it out and see how you stack up to the benchmarks and see if there's any insights that you can pull out from it.
And this one last question, when you do this in 2022, just asking you to kind of peer into your crystal ball,
Oh,
do you foresee any significant changes or different kinds of trends coming out of the pandemic from a video perspective?
yeah, my gut says we are going to largely see a continuation, in some cases, acceleration of some of those things that really shifted in 2020. Because I think things like user-generated videos by sales reps and other people is now just starting to. I mean, it's not even mainstream yet, right? Like it's just starting to get over the threshold of broader adoption. One of the big things we actually saw in 2020 was, for the first time, sales teams were rolling out tools for sales reps to record and send their own videos from the top down. Previously, it was individual reps who felt comfortable with it and like, yeah, I'm a savvy salesperson, I'm going to go make my own videos. They'd use the tools and they do this. But in the latter half of 2020, financial services, education, other markets, we saw them now rolling it down top down and saying, hey, all of our sales teams get these tools and we're going to train them on how to use it effectively. And coach them and learn going together. So I think we're very much at the early stages of that. And I think we're going to see that really even accelerate further in 2022 is the use of those short form, largely custom created videos, while the produced content continues to move along at the clip that it has.
Once again, lots of great stuff to dig. I mean, we touched on, some pretty good portion, but not nearly all this. There's a lot of more slides. There's a lot more analysis. And I suggest you check it out. It's free. I mean, the old motto, if it's free, it's for me. That's kind of the way I look at it. Lots of great. No, seriously though, I really got a lot of this report. And I think the more that everybody does video, the more you're really going to have to figure out, it's not just about doing it. It's about doing it in an effective way that works for your customer base and the audience you're looking for. So Tyler, thanks again. And let's make sure we do this. Well, I'd rather, I don't have to wait till next year, but I definitely look forward to speaking with you in the future, and definitely look forward to more insights around this, because more and more video is where it's at. And I mean, all you have to do is look at how much you talked about Game of Thrones. I mean, we're being entertained, but we're also learning more and more through video than ever before. So I think it's time to get going with it if you haven't already done so. In the meantime, thanks again for hanging out. And man, there it is. John is commenting until the end, folks. And that's a good thing. No, thanks again for your time. And I will see you later this week with CRM Players or watching Amazon or something else. By the way, check out John. John, you guys Fridays at 4 for John's show. And, this is a lively discussion. I'll just put it at that. Very lively, very fun. And he hasn't invited me on there yet, but you got to check it out as well. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Brent.